we've shared with people kind of what a clone is, and we've shared how Delphi fits into that cloning world, and we've shared with people how people are using Delphi and some of those use cases. Let's talk about how we actually make this happen. If somebody says, "Hey, I'd love to get started," like, what does it take to build a clone with you? Can you just take them through the process?
The way that I like to run people through, because I typically do the kickoff with new clients, and being a user of Delphi for a long time, I have a really good understanding of the tool, but it always surprises me with the different use cases or reasons why people want to scale themselves or clone themselves, which is typically my very first question is like, how did you find this technology? Because it's new. I'm always curious, but also it's like, what's your vision? Like, what do you want to do with this thing? Like, tell me your crazy wild vision. Just go crazy. Don't hold back. And I usually start there because it gets them excited, and it also turns on some lights that might not have been turned on, because I'll hear what the vision is. I might expand it further, or I might walk them back a little bit, but I'll give them context of like how it works in Delphi. Maybe sometimes telling them like, hey, here's what's coming, or what I'm aware of. So like, yeah, maybe that's a thing, but not now. So it's capturing that, trying to bottle up what's their vision, and then align it to Delphi. Essentially, like what can be built. During that call, I stole this but I do credit it to Dan Sullivan. His whole thing of like, all right, so paint a picture. Now that we have your big vision, let's focus on like what's the priority use case in your business. Typically, people have like one or two, and typically it's their members area. It's like we have an existing community that we want to give more value to. They ask a lot of questions, which is a good thing. It means you have an engaged community.
Yeah.
But it's either the business owner, the expert, or their community manager is completely overwhelmed. That's almost always the story. And again, good problems, but they're usually looking to hire multiple people, but then they see Delphi and they're like, holy moly, this thing can literally do the job of like 20 of these people or even more and better, but it doesn't eliminate the human, in there. Like, so the expert or the community manager is still very valuable there to support. But the point is like figure out where the priority use case is, and then that's when the Dan Sullivan question, which is like, hey, paint this on a scale of 1 to 10. What's an 11 outcome of making this use case, like come to life and like function really well? How is it going to give the most value? How would it act? How would it not act? Basically, I'm trying to really figure out what are the guardrails. How are we going to program this thing? And essentially, all that becomes prompts or a massive prompt with instructions and different logic that we build out. So,
Which is where our team, yeah, steps in, right? You were mentioning earlier, like one thing with a 10,000 word prompt, like that's all stuff that our team is doing.
yeah. So we're like, so it's a mixture of getting their vision, but then strategically, because I've consulted a ton of businesses, I've advised them as well. I have a marketing mind. So I'm thinking of this as a journey, which when I tell people this, I don't think they're expecting it. They're probably expecting some like tech guy, is like, oh, AI build team or from Delphi. But it's like, no, they actually like get super jazzed up when they hear, oh, you're a marketer. Okay, perfect. Like I need all the help.
That's so interesting that you say that because everybody that is a builder for us has a marketing background.
That's right. They have some form of marketing.
So after you guys have, you're kind of in that first, preparation, that prepare state phase, then somebody is directed to send you content, right? How does that happen? Like, what kind of things do they send? Where do they send it to? How's all that work?
Yeah, and the content is I always say this is the biggest lift on the person, like so the business owner coming to us, which makes sense because they hold the content. Um, it might live in a whole bunch of places, like on their membership area. It could be just loaded into a Kajabi or Mighty Networks or Circle platform or wherever Thinkific. These are all very common places.
Yeah.
Most of the times people have backups on like a Google Drive or Dropbox, which is helpful. If they don't, there's other ways to extract the information. Ideally, you want to have something in a shareable like Google Drive, just because and they always thank me after they go through the process, even if it's kind of grueling for their team. you have a backup of your stuff. You're not like platform dependent anymore. And
Yeah.
literally, I've never had one person say this was a bad idea. Like, there's like, yeah, I've been waiting for the point, the moment this had to happen.
Joe, would you say that this is probably, when it comes to timing on a project, this is probably what slows things down the most, is somebody's really enthusiastic and then it comes to pulling together their data, and sometimes we'll wait weeks.
Yeah, they're trying to get their assistant or themselves or whoever hires someone even to do this sometimes. It is. A lot of times though, I mean, luckily we're fortunate enough with Delphi where we get given we're basically like we're onboarding the top tier clients, which is awesome. So a lot of them are pretty organized or they have a team that can get it done fast, but still there's a content lift. So I'd say, yeah. And even if you're not doing Delphi, like have your content somewhere because any kind of AI, it's going to come in handy.
For any AI from now until forever, you're going to need to have clean content in order to work on projects efficiently and things like that. Just kind of a couple hacks that I use that really helped me to get my model kind of like trained quickly was I had 3 books, and what I had to do, actually one of them I didn't have the manuscript, so I had to rip the whole thing off and rip
That's
the cover
very
off.
common, by the way.
Yeah,
With
right?
authors, it blew my mind. I'm like, you don't have your own book, but I'm like, well, the
Right.
publisher does, and
The publisher does.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I literally had to, I've actually got, I'll just show you the back of it. I got one of them right here from when I did that.
Oh, you really did
And,
rip it apart, huh?
I really did rip it apart. I ripped it apart and whatever, and I scanned it. And so I basically I had that, plus I had the other books. I had the thingamajigger, the document, and the manuscript. So I had those, and then what I did is I have I keep a Google workbook, and in the Google workbook, I have a bunch of sheets. And so one of the sheets is all of my YouTube videos. One of the sheets is all of my articles. One of the sheets is all of the podcasts. So I have all of that in one place. And basically what we were able to do is we were able to just drag and drop. So we send you a link, and you get a link, and basically the back end is a Google Drive.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I just book, Google workbook. And that was it. And the initial training and loading of that took like 6 minutes.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
It's fast.
And then I clicked a button. Andrew had me click a button. This is 18 months ago. And so I went to a different part in the back end, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing knows more about me than I know about me. It was incredible. So again, this takes time. You might be able to use ChatGPT or another large language model to help you to get all that data organized in a way like that. But it's a hack that takes time to do the first time. But once you do it, you're going to be able to onboard into really any AI or use any large language model, be able to train it really super quickly.
What we're talking about now is the content that is not published publicly.
That's
so
right.
Meaning, yeah, this is all the books that have been published that, you know, obviously you're not going to rip books from Amazon. Like
Right.
It's Delphi cannot do that. It's not going to go start scraping some private repositories. Like just no, it won't do that. But so you need to, yeah, provide it all of this clean content. So books, training materials, maybe if coaching calls, whatever it is that you do with clients or your personal information that you want to load in. Yeah, have a place. Google Drive's preferable.
What about social media?
Yeah. That's what I was getting at. It's like now you have, and then you have this whole other side of public content, stuff that you've already consciously pushed live to a platform. So there's social media, all the platforms. You have YouTube, you have podcasts, you have your website, blogs, email, even. All that stuff can be consumed or, you know, basically ingested into Delphi in a bunch of different ways.
Can we provide links or like how?
My favorite ways are, yeah, like the website, links to any kind of website that represents you, your brand. We can put those in there, and Delphi scrapes those websites, which is really cool. It organizes them. You have the ability to rename anything if you want. You can delete if you don't want certain pages loaded in there. That's a super fast way to get something up to speed if you have a lot of public content. YouTube is another great one. So you can sync up to a YouTube channel, a playlist, or individual videos, including not on your channel. Those are the ones that you would reference someone else as the owner or the creator. and it keeps it synced to YouTube as well. So any future content that goes out, it basically loads into Delphi automatically without you hitting any buttons. Same thing on podcasts.
Once we have that data, that's where like Joe and his team, that's like where you guys do your magic. That's where the art comes in. So the next phase is kind of the build phase. And what happens in the build phase?
We take everything that we talked about on the call, which we typically record. So we have the transcription. We use Fathom, to record all this stuff. So we're capturing everything, but we're also taking notes. We take your content, all the information. We're also doing our independent research on you publicly and wherever that stuff is. And that's where we build it into the Delphi system. We really focus on this thing called the purpose. It's kind of like the core functioning or the core values of your Delphi. It's gonna really tell it how it should act, who it is, its roles, frameworks, and content to use, and all these different instructions that we make sure it's not going to say some crazy thing. It's not emulating other people. It's not going to, tell people to go jump off a bridge like literally we take all this very seriously. All that stuff is coded in here where we are making sure that this is tuned up exactly what you have in mind. And we can always go back and revise this, but we're designing that because it is an art, is to do it that way. We're testing and we're adding different instructions. Basically, as we're building, we're testing it in real time, going back and forth based on what we talked about. That phase typically takes about a week, maybe a little longer, because last thing we want to do is rush it. Yeah. We have done very rushed things for timelines or demos that people want to do, but typically I would say budget about a week to get that done, that phase.
We're on it 24/7. You don't have to do anything during this phase. This is really where we do a lot of the heavy lifting, which leads to the third phase, which is now we've done our build and it's time for you to go get feedback so that we can iterate. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
For sure. Yeah. So that's the phase where we're now adding you to the platform. We also educate throughout all this process. So you're aware of what we're doing and also learning the platform. I think that's a key thing is we always want you to have the keys, so you're not, it's not this black box where you're like, oh, what's this mystery thing? But we are here to help guide you along the way and actually do the work. So in this feedback phase, the third phase is basically you getting access to the platform, both the back end and also the profile, your Delphi profile. And that's the page where you're going to see your avatar, a description about you and yourself, and then typically 2 or 3 boxes for people to interact with you. Text, voice, and if you have a video avatar, a video option as well. So three ways people can engage. And then there's some suggested questions or conversation starters right below that. That's basically the profile in a nutshell. And what we do is we give best practices on how to test out your Delphi. Typically, you want to make sure it sounds like you, both in written form, video form, and visual. And those are probably the most like, holy crap moments, where you hear yourself for the first time. And sometimes it's not perfect, but again, we could tweak it. There's a lot of things all this is customizable. Or it's writing the way that you speak. And you're like, damn, I always wish I could write that way. Or sometimes you're just like, wow, I speak like that? I should change. And you can change that too. But again, so Delphi, and I guess I skipped this part. When we load in all the content, Delphi is so dang smart where it's actually analyzing the way you write and speak.
Yeah.
So it's creating a whole profile around you, and you can customize it. And we do during this phase. We're not just banking on Delphi to get it perfect, but it's going to set the scene and like foundationally. But this is what will get the thing to really emulate you and the way you think, the way you speak and respond. So that's part of the feedback phase. Like back to the third phase, that's where we want to make sure you're testing all of it. And essentially, we make it easy. We have a whole form and way to interact with us throughout this, actually all these phases, where we'll be able to get your feedback, capture that, make those iterations basically in real time. Sometimes it takes us an extra couple of days, depending on how in depth the feedback is. Because some people it's as easy as like, hey, I didn't really, it referenced an old product that I don't have anymore. Well, that's easy. It's very easy to update that. Like you said, about your daughter, giving an answer that, or a question it couldn't answer. Well, that happens as well in feedback. Well, you just give it the answer and it trains the mind, and it now knows that from now on until it's updated, if it ever is.
And during that feedback phase, I know that one of the things that you've done in the past is, you've had the people on the team or the management team listen and ask questions just to make sure that everything's on point with the data that's been given to you. So, you really, really hone that in, you nail that down. And then once you're past feedback and iteration, and you as the user are like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to push this live. Now we push live, we integrate, we pass off. Can you kind of walk through that phase?
Basically, the integration launch phase is where we're at now, because you're feeling confident. You know that this thing is going to act the way that you envision it would, maybe even hopefully better. Now we get to decide, and we've already have talked about this. We know we have an idea of where it's going to live. So if it's in a members area, it might be in your Kajabi platform or Mighty Networks.
Yep.
So what we'll do, Delphi is super simple in terms of embedding. There are some definitely best practices and things we guide you on, but it's as simple as, an HTML form or an iframe, depending on where it's going. Sometimes it's within an app, mobile app as well. So what we'll do is not only provide the guidance on how to do that, but we're giving you best practices on how to launch this, or not only embed it and integrate, but how to launch it to your audience or whoever's going to use this, even if it's internally to your team. There's best practices to start sharing your Delphi and actually do the launch. I mean, we've all done product launches of our own type. It's like sometimes those are, I wouldn't say it makes or breaks everything. It could, but like that launch phase, you really want to hype people up to be the early adopters. I mean, it's just like with AI in general at a greater, there's always these people that are going to jump on early and then, use it and then talk about it. And that's how I see it with any of this. When you launch it to your own business, even if it's internally on your team, community, even in the public, you want to get evangelists around your Delphi. So it's not just you talking about it all the time. We want to start sharing what other people, how they're using it. And, and then it becomes this kind of this thing that's network effect almost. And, that's what we try to achieve. So we're integrating a little bit of the technical stuff, like where is it going to live? How's it going to function? But also, what's the marketing approach here? How do we get this out so we get people using it and then telling other people within your community to use it so it becomes a valuable thing right on the rip?
Exactly. And so when we're talking about launching it, and we're talking about kind of where it's going to live, like that's one part of it. Can you talk about actions? Because people are always asking about, does this integrate with anything? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Good call. I glossed over that. I got excited about the launch. So tons of integrations. Essentially if you can imagine Delphi, like I said earlier, is kind of like a CRM in itself. So as a conversation funnel, it's getting people to opt in. So when they opt in, they're technically added to your database. So there's a profile created around that person. You're going to have them technically opt into your email at that point. They can also opt into your SMS. So the profile inside of your Delphi CRM will show you all this per person. And it gives you basically some stats, kind of like if you were to look in your Go High Level or HubSpot account, you can see stats on that person and, the information they've given you. But what if you want to take that information out and have it do some stuff? So that's where you can integrate it to any kind of email CRM. Some are natively integrated, some are not, but you can connect them in a whole variety of ways. Zapier's in there, so that connects to pretty much everything. You could also get a little bit more technical and push to different APIs. So essentially, you can connect with anything you want. And there's other integrations like you can connect it to your Google Calendar, actually, which is interesting. So you can have it, and this is like, we're not going to go down too far here, but you can have it actually join a Zoom meeting if you wish to. Delphi can join and kind of be a note taker / a companion on a Zoom call, either audio or video, which is pretty cool. It blows minds. And sometimes I even forget to use it because it's one of those features. There's so many features in Delphi, but that's an integration. Slack, if it's for teams, a great use case a lot of people do, or even a community that's like a Slack community, you can integrate your Delphi into there. So not only that is a way you can import information into Delphi, but it's also a way it can be your Slack bot, more or less, but it's actually you.
When we started at the very beginning with the preparation phase and we're learning about what your purpose is and what the use case is, our team is going to have ideas for you about how you may want to integrate this with other tools that you use. As we go through the build phase and now we're at feedback and iteration and you've learned more and people on your team or people who are testing this are starting to say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this or we did that or we connected with this? We're basically, I mean, just think of us like we're right alongside you, riding shotgun as a member of your team here. And our job is really to help see you win. And so you share those things with us, and then we can help guide you, coach you, train you on how to create, those types of those integrations. And so once we get past that point, now you're live. So there's a couple ways that we work with a customer. So the first is, as we've taken you through the preparation, we've taken you through the build, we've taken you through the feedback in the iteration. Now we've launched you, so the first way is that we can launch you, and your team now knows how to use this, and you guys take it from here. What really everyone has done with us up to this point is they've taken it to the next step, and that is just we stick with you. We stick with you forever. And so you pay a monthly subscription fee, and every month, our team is in contact with you. We are constantly optimizing your clone. You can send us an unlimited amount of content and we'll continue to train it. We can add additional use cases for you, and we can just help to expand how you leverage, how you monetize, this tool. And so really kind of, that's really, I think the whole cycle, right? Is the preparation, the build, the feedback, launching, and then optimizing is the fifth piece.
Yeah. And actually, well, I would add actually optimization automations as a sixth.
Is a sixth, yeah.
And I'll tell you why. But yeah, the training after launch and all that, and this is where everybody as of yet, like you said, basically keeps us on staff. And I like that. We ride shotgun in your business. I actually, that's a great analogy. It's perfect. And it's that's the phase typically where we want to keep you engaged in the latest of the Delphi platform. So there's training, a lot of training happening. And we have a lot of that pre-recorded, and we're always adding to it just because the platform and AI moves at rocket speed. But the thing is, there's all new features that are always rolling out. So we are constantly, the fact that we work with the Delphi team tightly, very tight, and we're seeing what's being released and how to use it. We want to make sure that you're geared up to do the same. Out of the box, Delphi is extremely powerful and it's great. And yeah, if you wanted to keep up with all this stuff, you could try. Some of the stuff you really just don't know unless it pops in on the platform and you start just breaking stuff, which is what we do every day. So we basically shortcut that whole thing for you. We're on your team. We know your vision, and there should be a lot of trust at this point where we have your back. And again, we're making sure that you're trained up on what you need to know and where things are going. Then that sixth piece is really the optimization and automations. Why this is cool is because now, and I'll just describe some scenarios when we don't really start here and some people want to just start like with AI, everybody wants to automate from the get-go. It's like, great. What are you going to automate? Do you even have a picture of what the hell you're doing, or like the right setup to automate? Maybe you're automating something that's horrible or that no one wants. That's why we go through this phase and we get that feedback and we make sure it's functioning properly. Automations and optimizations, those are all geared to scale. And that's that continual thing that kind of loops. But a few examples is in Delphi, see it as almost it's becoming very agent-like. If you're aware of this whole concept of agents, that's where basically AI can be built in a way to start doing actions on its own behalf because you programmed it with some really smart logic to do whatever you want. It could be anything. That's very simplified, of course. But the point is, Delphi is becoming more of that, but with its own digital mind that we've already talked about, that you've created, or that we've helped you create, but we're all doing this together. Now you could set up these different things to tag people during different scenarios. So now you're organizing people in conversations. And then, of course, you could do things when people are tagged, just like you could in like Go High Level or HubSpot or something. You could set up alerts. So these alerts can be triggered to you or people on your team or even to the user based on different things that they say or conversations they're having. So that's super valuable. If someone's mentioning they really want to work with you or they really want to set up a call with the real Scott because they want to invest in our business or something else, like, oh, shoot. All right, pick up the phone, go. Like you got the phone, you get their email, like go reach out as a human. Some of these things you want to be alerted to. That's why the whole, scaling connection. That's again why I think Delphi is cool, because you can make human connection come from this scaled connection, if that makes sense. So you have tagging, you have alerts that then can trigger things to happen. And the last bit, which is being expanded, is you have this Delphi actions. And the way I would see that, it's almost like Zapier built into Delphi. And these are if this, then that kind of statements. And in Delphi, I'm just going to list some of these off because these are like templates or featured things that just get the party started, gets the thing going. But like there's inactivity nudges. Let's say someone just hasn't engaged with your Delphi for like a week or a few days. Well, give them a nudge. You can actually send an email from your Delphi. You can send them a message. You can send them an SMS text if you have them opted in to bring them back and say like, hey, we had a really good chat. Like, how are things going with that thing you talked about or that thing you said you wanted to do? So it's almost like an accountability partner. Bring them back to the conversation. You can notify you or your team based on certain things. You can push data out to a different source, to another API, to an external system. So it's another deeper integration, but you can also do that based on actions. You can check in with people at a certain cadence. You can remind people of an event that might be coming up that you have. You can just follow up on anything. A couple other things. You can send them birthday wishes, or certain reminders on anything they shared with you that's maybe date focused. Like there's all these little touch points that you can set up, and it's really up to you being creative. So that's where the automations come into play. It's kind of like Zapier, but within the system. But then on the other layer is like Zapier is also an integration. So you can then integrate to thousands of other tools. They're integrating more things all the time. So I'm sure there'll be more even by the time this episode goes live or soon after. But that's what we're doing in the optimization automations phase, is basically always getting creative and looking at feedback and what's working really well. We figure out if something's not working, fix it. But also it's like, well, what if we did this to enhance what we're doing? That's where our team is always thinking about that. And then we can apply some of these automations.
Well, we also have the perspective of hundreds of customers. So because we're able to see exactly what's working for people and what's not working for people, we can save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle by really just kind of working side by side with you. What is it that you want to accomplish? And then we can try and figure out the best way to do it within the tool. Because our work extends across so many. We're constantly working with the team over at Delphi on how to improve in every phase. So we've got these 6 phases that we just outlined, and I think it's important to note that some people might be saying to themselves, well, what was phase 1 again? Or where do I start? Or how does it happen? So we have for our clients, we have a private client portal, a hub. And so when you become a client of ours, we give you access to this hub, and it actually takes you through each phase. And it has all the checklists that you need. It has a description of what happens in this phase, what we need from you in this phase, what would cause the biggest delays and how we can help with that. You've got all of your checklists, you have your pro tips, you have your FAQs, and you also have videos as well to help walk you through that phase. So everything that you or your team would need is really just in one place. And we've summarized the most important things that you need to help make this just really as simple as possible.